Welcome to this guided series for new players to Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. In this part, what we're going to be doing is building the secret police station, which is down here. You can see at the moment it's locked behind research, but we are currently researching it over here, so it should finish fairly soon. In order to understand the role of the secret police in the economy, you need to understand loyalty. Now, this is going to be the only subject that we're going to cover in this video. Hopefully it's going to be nice and short and straight to the point. But I'm also going to apologise in advance that loyalty is a little bit of a hidden mechanic in the game. And there's one possible problem if you try and go out and find extra information on, is down to the fact that loyalty has been in the game since its initial release in 2019. For the first, I think, year or so, the loyalty had no effect on the game. But what's happened is that loyalty has been slowly integrated into various mechanics in the game, especially some of them more advanced mechanics such as crime and justice. So I'll give you this warning that if you want to get extra information on loyalty, be very careful what you're reading and check how old it is, because some of the forums and chats are talking about loyalty in a previous incarnation. What is loyalty? Well, every resident, part of their overall attributes, has a loyalty. Now you can see at the moment is this loyalty is actually grayed out. In fact, if I come in here and show you the big version, you'll see that the red star represents loyalty, and at the moment there's 2 question marks next to it. And the reason for that is that until you get the secret police going out on patrol and visiting all your residents, the loyalty is unknown. But it doesn't mean the game's not tracking loyalty, because if I come up here, you'll see that we have an average loyalty of 54%. So that means that even though we don't know the individual loyalty of our residents, that doesn't mean that they don't have a loyalty in the game. And you can estimate that probably the loyalty at the moment's probably about between 50% and say high 40s to the mid 60s in percentage. The other thing I want to talk about, and which is one of the reasons what the secret police is going to fix, is at the moment you've got this setting here which says that you can set the government loyalty of the teachers and also the workforce that comes into your schools. It also applies to universities, and there are other buildings such as the secret police itself and also prisons when you play with crime and justice enabled. But if you look on the bottom, there's a line underneath it says if workers' loyalty is unknown, it is allowed to work. So what that means is until you know the loyalty of your workforce, you can't actually get these sliders to work. And these sliders are quite important, which I'll talk about later on. So what is loyalty? Well, loyalty, as I've already mentioned, is an attribute of every worker in the game. In fact, it goes all the way down to even kindergarten children have a loyalty, although generally it can be quite low. Loyalty is very intertwined with happiness, and they actually interact with each other in several ways. The first, probably the most best way, and gives the strongest reason for keeping both happiness and loyalty as high, is each individual worker's productivity. So you come into here, it looks like the research has just finished, so we're okay. Now if I show you here, every worker in the game has a series of stats, and as part of that is an average productivity. Now what drives this average productivity? In fact, you can see that this is a very productive worker. They got a productivity of 117%, and the reason for that is a combination of happiness and loyalty. Happiness by far is the main driver, but what you really need to understand is how loyalty affects happiness. When you've got high loyalty, and I think when I say high loyalty, I'm not talking 100%, I'm talking say above 50-60%. The high loyalty will actually improve your residents' happiness, not by a vast amount, but it will be by a few percent. The reason for that is that means that your workforce are happy with the situation of them, their lives regulated, and they get that little bit of a boost to happiness. Now, the downside is that if you've got workers with low loyalty, and I'm saying below 30%, one, they will have a pretty terrible productivity, but also what the opposite starts to take effect. Your residents will start to become unhappy due to the effect of them being basically disloyal. I mean, the way to look at it is their distance. And that leads into a feature in here, what you will see is called escapees. Now what happens is that if your residents become very unhappy and have got very low loyalty, they will start to escape from your economy. So this is something that you do need to try and avoid at all costs, because if you get a population, what they call it is a death spiral, you can literally, if you get it wrong completely, you can lose your entire population. And I can talk about that from experience. I've been caught out many times, especially when you've only got the one town. Something dramatic happens. One of the classic ones is to have your heating fail or to run out of food. Your residents not getting food has a very devastating effect on both happiness, and it will also affect your loyalty as well. That is the relationship between loyalty and happiness. Now I want to do is move on and talk about how loyalty actually is built up and how it actually works within itself. Now, the way to explain it is if I go to the kindergarten and we click on one of these babies, all babies are given an initial loyalty. So the way to look at it is when they get to an adult, they get a certain, they attain a certain level of loyalty. The loyalty itself does slowly decay over time back towards what we'd call your economy's base level. Now, by base level comes to why you actually build monuments. Now, monuments have an influence on loyalty, reversing that decay, but they will only increase loyalty to, I think it's 40% on hard levels, 50% on medium level, what we're playing at the moment. So what will happen is over time, if you don't do anything else, your residents will slowly drift back towards the to that baseline. Now, the ways you can increase your baseline is by the use of radio and TV. What radio and TV do is you can adjust the settings to say, I want to give a certain boost to loyalty. So therefore, probably an early target in some games is to get a radio station up and running. But the downside is, if I come back to here, you'll see it's locked behind research. And if I show you the research in here, in order to be able to research radio, I'm pretty sure we will come here. We need to research introduction to broadcasting, radio signal broadcasting. Now, one thing I will tell you is that what you do need is this influence of radio broadcast. So if you actually build a radio station, you can't control what is broadcast on that station. It will possibly have a positive effect on your economy, but what you do need is this tech as well, which is influence of radio broadcast, because what this does is allow you to customize what is broadcast. So the way to look at it is you become the minister of propaganda. So returning back to what I was saying is monuments can lift your loyalty to 40%. Radio and TV can push it up to, I can't remember the percentage exactly, to 60 or 70%. Now, there is one other way that you can permanently increase your loyalty baseline, and that's by giving your residents personal cars. I'm not going to go into depth about how you would actually give residents personal cars. What I will say is be very careful before you go down that route. The reason being is that once you start giving your residents personal cars, one, you will greatly increase the traffic in your city, so you need to be able to manage your traffic more effectively, and more importantly, it will also start to push up your fuel consumption because every personal car will be consuming fuel. One tip I will give you is that, say you've got an industry that you want to send workers to, and by giving them personal cars and building a car park next to that industry, what you can do is let your workers travel by car. So sometimes there can be a reason for actually using personal cars. So now that's a general overview of how loyalty works. And what we're going to do now is we're going to build the secret police station, because in order to show you the remaining mechanics, it's easier to show you rather than talk about it. So here's the secret police, and you can see there's two sizes. There's a small one and a large one. Now this town's going to get pretty big over time, so I'm going to go straight for the big one. In fact, I think I'd like to join that up with that road there, like that. And then what we can do, speed the game up, let the auto purchase going. And what I will do is just connect you up as well. We're just going to let that secret police build. Now what you'll see is, oh, we've got, I'm just gonna cancel that. Now what I tend to do is, as long as I've got a gas station in the town or near the town, I generally don't put fuel in the secret police station, because the cars are going out roving around. But I think what we will do is just put the fuel guys on it. Well, just give them fuel, because the secret police will be roving around all the time. And so what the next thing we need to do is come into here, and we're going to buy a car. To be honest, choosing your secret police car is more about what immersion, because you can change the color, but of course the symbol of the secret police is always black cars. We're going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So just let the game run. So what will happen now is, once we get some workers into here, or our secret police agents come into here, the cars will actually eventually leave. There's one just about to leave, but I'm going to pause the game while I talk about this. Now, what you see here is that you can give your secret police minimal loyalty. What I tend to do is have put the loyalty quite lower. The reason for that is that the way the loyalty seems to work, I emphasize the word seems, is the fact that the secret police don't actually have an impact on the loyalty of your workers, but the higher loyalty they have, the less visits they seem to need to make to buildings. Because the way to think of it is, well, if we let the game run now, we pick up the car, we'll pick him up, we'll go slow, and we'll just put a follow on the car. Maybe it's a bit too slow. What you'll see is that he's going to go out. Now, if I turn on the loyalty overlay, if I can get it done before he gets into here, what you see at the moment is all these buildings have question marks over the top. So if we let them go in there, and what they do is they visit, and the way you want to think about it is that they are going in there and installing surveillance equipment. So now if we go in, so if I show you this building, the moment this has got question marks and we can't see the loyalty of the individual workers, but this one here is being visited, and we can now see that the average loyalty in this building is 54%, which will match the overall one. But what it also means is we can actually see the loyalty now of our individual residents in here. So if we just let the game run, and what you'll see is that as the black cars go out, they will visit. Now what I'm going to talk about now is purely anecdotal, and but I have seen some comments in the Steam community to verify this, that the higher the loyalty of your secret police, the longer the effect of the kind of intelligence gathering on these buildings lasts. So if you've got low loyalty secret police, they got to visit more often. The higher the loyalty, the less they do it. But what you see now is that these are now spreading out, covering all the buildings. Now, if you've watched the previous part when I was talking about the loyalty in schools, this is the way that you can really build up the loyalty of your population. Now, if I go to the kindergarten, you'll see that the children start with what you could call a baseline loyalty. And then what happens is they go to school, and what we've got now is we've got teachers, and what I'd like to do with the school is push this up to slightly just above average, just to make sure that you've got enough teachers in here. And what these teachers do is they pass their loyalty onto the students. So say for example, we've got teachers here with 56% loyalty, and we've got students in here, well, we've got one here with 51. So there's a good chance that your students coming out of school will have a loyalty of 56%. And this is how you can actually increase that baseline loyalty that you're going to need, which will slowly decline back. Because the more of your students come out with a slightly above average loyalty, this is the reason why I set these to slightly above the average, but at the same time making sure there's enough teachers in. These students will come out with a higher loyalty. Then as that loyalty increases, you can increase the percentage of the government loyalty in your school. So the idea is what you're doing is slowly pushing up the loyalty to the next baseline, which I think is about high 60s, 70, 80%. Don't quote me on that, guys, because I'm not too sure. But so you can't use this method to get to 100%. So to kind of give you a recap, the monuments edge up the loyalty over time to above 40%. The schools then reinforce that, taking it to possibly 60, 70%. Now, universities are exactly the same. Now, because not everybody goes to university, I tend to leave the universities slightly lower until I've got a population big enough to ensure that I've got it. In fact, with this, we probably could push this to 55% as well, because obviously we're only just getting there. So we've got students in here at the moment where I saw one in here with a loyalty of 49%. Now, a very important reason for doing this is, I think if you've watched the previous part, you'll be aware that I brought these in as foreign workers. And what you'll see here, these are probably the group that are dragging down the average loyalty. And what you can see here is that some of these now have got loyalty of 43 and 46%. Now, if I brought in another group here, in fact, let's just bring that in as a demo. So we're going to bring in some immigrants to the third world. What you see here, just keep the game on pause so they don't wander off. You can see that these students who've got no education now only have loyalty of 39%, 34%, 23%, and across here. But the thing is that these will now go and attend the school here. And as a part of actually attending the school here, so we got this guy here. So he's got 30. He's 32 years of age. He's just arrived in the economy, and he's got a loyalty of 12% because he doesn't come from a Soviet republic. But what will happen is part of his education, while he's getting that education, he will also get loyalty. And so this is why having the secret police is quite useful even early in the game. I've seen some players say, well, you don't need the secret police. But if you're going to bring in foreign workers, you do need the secret police so that you can actually get their loyalty up. Because otherwise, again, if I can come in here, if I can, you can see here that despite the fact that this guy here, let me just make it a bit bigger. Despite the fact that this guy's got 69% happiness, he's only got a productivity of 42%. So this guy is not particularly very efficient. In fact, there might even be somebody even worse here. You can see this one, this resident here has got 48% happiness. So his happiness is low, his loyalty is very low. So this is an example, the fact that because this worker has got a loyalty of 16%, he's actually having a negative effect on his happiness because he doesn't want to be here. It's probably the way to look at it. And that's why his productivity is so low. And this is the reason, and he's actually got a basic education. So what we need to do is try and get him to go to university. Unfortunately, we can't direct him. Probably a pretty good example of the relationship between happiness and productivity. And you can see here that the actual average loyalty in this block at the moment is 41%, which is a good 10-15% lower than the buildings alongside. This one is only 49%. So what we got here, yeah, 46%. They've got up to 41%, probably under the influence of monuments, but the other ones below haven't. So hopefully that explains loyalty in itself and how the mechanic works. Also, the why you need a secret police to get in and get out. Now, to finish up, I just want to talk about loyalty, like happiness, can be very easily lost. It's also, there are mechanics where you can give yourself a problem with it. And it is notoriously difficult to build up your average loyalty. In fact, like education, it could be a generational influence. So, for example, some of the people in here will always have a relatively low loyalty of around 40%, and until we get a radio in, which might improve them a little bit. The way to look at it is that the only way you're going to get rid of this influence for some of these will be for them to die. But if you come into here, what you'll see is their children are actually a bit better. They got 46, 52%. But when these children go to school, which is here, you can see that these children are getting a better education. So the next generation is getting there. We've got something that's a bit low there. Then, of course, we haven't got any over 21s. Anyway, this is where I'm going to leave it. I don't want to cover any other subjects. I think, well, if you I've got a feeling you may need to watch this video twice and do a little bit of research yourself to really get your head around loyalty. It is a very intertwined subject. The one thing I will say is that before you enable crime and justice, really get a good understanding of how loyalty works, because once you get crime into your economy, another level of complexity kicks in. So this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. And until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.